Facts First presents Rare Vintage Cars Driven by Rock and Roll Legends. You ever seen an actor, musician, or athlete shopping for a car at a used car lot? There's an excellent chance that you've not, because those people have plenty of money. If you had all that money, well, would you be driving your old clunker around? Celebrities have no problem paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for a car. Some will even pay a cool $1,000,000 if the car is worth it to them. Here are some rare vintage cars driven by rock and roll legends, athletes, and other famous celebrities. Muhammad Ali is one of the greatest fighters of all time. His victories in the ring have helped him to earn that title and the millions of dollars that go along with it. When Ali refused to take part in the Vietnam draft, he lost his boxing license. Fortunately for Ali and his fans, his license was eventually reinstated. As a gift to himself for getting his license back, he bought a Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow. Throughout his life, Ali owned several Rolls-Royces, but this one was special. This car signified his return to the ring. For 6 years, Ali drove this car around before selling it off. When Ali first sold the car, it moved from the United States to Europe, where it remained with its owner in the Netherlands for quite a while. According to Bonhams, it was the most expensive car being made at the time that the company produced it. After being completely restored, the car sold for $70,000. The fact the car was driven by one of boxing's greats makes the car priceless. Of all the members of the Beatles, Ringo Starr was the most underappreciated. Because of that, the car he drove was an underrated car, but it was still gorgeous. The car was a Facel Vega 2 with a French 6.7-liter Grand Tourer engine. We don't want to sound like a cliché, but they don't make them like this anymore. The car looks like something a villain in a James Bond movie might drive, but it was pretty popular with the drummer. When Ringo drove down the street in this car, you'd expect it to be a French mobster behind the wheel. If you want a car like Ringo's, you better be ready to pay $250,000. Cha-Cha Muldowney was born Shirley Muldowney, and she is known as the First Lady of Drag Racing. During the 50s and 60s, it was unheard of for women to want to race, but that didn't stop Cha-Cha. While living in upstate New York during the late 50s, she started racing. She loved it so much that by the mid-60s, she was on her way to becoming one of the most death-defying racers in the circuit. She proved herself as a racer early on, and in the 70s she won 3 NHRA Top Fuel Dragster World Championships. Up until this point, Cha-Cha received a lot of blowback from her competitors and from the NHRA just because she wanted to race. Finally, they came around, though. According to Cha-Cha, the NHRA fought her every step of the way. When they realized that a female racer could fill the stands, they gave their blessing to her. In the late 70s, Cha-Cha took a photo on the beach with her dragster that became famous. Had this picture been taken in today's world, it would have gone viral within hours. Grace Kelly led a charmed life. She got her start in acting while appearing in a series of MGM films. Grace's rise to fame came when she starred in back-to-back Alfred Hitchcock movies. She really showed what she was capable of when she played Lisa Fremont in Rear Window. In 1955, Grace headed the U.S. delegation at the Cannes Film Festival, and that was where Prince Rainier III first saw her. The two met and fell in love. They were married a year after meeting, and Grace Kelly became the Princess of Monaco. It was a real-life fairy tale that every girl wanted. Every girl wanted to be Grace. The couple spent years together but were torn apart by tragedy. On September 13, 1985, Grace had a stroke while driving her Rover P6. She was driving to Monaco from her home. When she had the stroke, she drove her car off the mountainside and died on impact. It was a terrible tragedy. Such a beautiful woman with a rich, full life cut short in an instant. Her beloved Rover P6 3500 was totaled in the accident. Because Robert Plant was a British rock icon, you'd expect him to drive only the best. Well, when Led Zeppelin went from being a bar band to the legendary stadium rock band they became, Robert had plenty of money to buy a car. He chose one of the most stylish cars of the era, a 1965 Aston Martin. Because the band was always touring, Robert rarely got to drive his car. When he decided to sell it, it was placed in a controlled environment. Nicholas Mee & Company put it on the market in 2017. The classic car is still in pristine condition thanks to proper storage, and you can buy it if you have $1 million lying around. Yeah, that does sound a bit steep for a car, but hey, Robert Plant drove this car. That alone increases the value tenfold. Since Ringo Starr is on our list, you got to expect John Lennon's name to come up too. John owned a Phantom V, and he put his own spin on it. He had it painted with a Sgt. Pepper paint job in 1967. It looks wild and offended some of the more classic Brits. After John's untimely death, his car went into a museum where it's been kept in pristine condition. Today, it's a regular part of Beatles retrospectives. In 2017, it was also part of Rolls-Royce's The Great 8 Phantoms piece. 60s. Nobody knows what John paid for the car and the art, but Beatles historian Steve Clifford estimates it to be around $250,000. Today, now that John is gone and the Beatles are all legends, the car is priceless. It is not for sale because no amount of money would be able to cover the cost of it. What is it with Rockstars and their Aston Martins? It seems as though once a musician becomes a star, buying an Aston Martin is kind of like a requirement or something. The Rolling Stones frontman Mick Jagger purchased an Aston Martin DB6 for $14,000. Back then, that was a lot of money. Right after buying the car, Mick was driving it through the streets of London and he crashed. He only had the car for 3 months and he was told that the damage would cost about £200 to fix. There's no word as to when Mick sold the car and to whom, but he really should have held on to it. If Mick still had that car today, it'd be worth a cool £1 million. Fortunately, Mick isn't hard up for money, so he wouldn't chalk this one up to one of his biggest life regrets. Charlie's Angels was one of the most popular TV shows during its heyday. Farrah Fawcett played the gorgeous Jill Monroe. For the first few seasons, Jill drove around in a Ford Mustang Cobra II. When Farrah left the show, the car didn't go with her. It was later driven by her sister Chris. When the show ended, the car disappeared. Amateur sleuths and fans of the show wanted to find out what happened to the Cobra when the show ended. After doing a little research, they found out that there were actually 2 identical cars used in the show. The first is said to still be in Whittier, California. The whereabouts of the second car is unknown. As time passed, it seems though the car has just been completely lost. At least we still have the memory of Farrah driving it. The Monkees may not have been a real band per se, but they had some of the biggest hits of the 60s and their own TV show. The band also did guest spots on other popular TV shows. Who could forget the time that Davy Jones went and asked Marcia Brady to the dance on the Brady Bunch? One of the coolest props on ABC's The Monkees was their 1966 Pontiac GTO. It was the car they drove around in, having all of their misadventures. The car is not drivable, and it has the Monkees logo going down the side. Even though it can't be driven, it's still an amazing piece of memorabilia. In 2008, the car sold for a whopping $396,000. Who would want to drive a BMW painted by Andy Warhol himself? Well, in 1977, Andy was tasked with creating an art car for BMW. A project like this would take most artists weeks or even months to complete. It took Andy 24 minutes. When the media arrived to photograph the car, Andy asked if he should paint another one. The BMW owner replied by saying, "Over my dead body." You should have let Andy paint that car because today that car would be priceless. Which of these cars would you like to have in your garage? Tell us in the comments and subscribe for more.